Today, we're going to talk about the latest patch and how the buffs and nerfs affected the meta, the rise and fall of both loved and controversial decks, and we're going to talk about Janna. Did Riot make a mistake to not nerf Janna in any real meaningful way? I'm Snnuy, and with me is Marshall from the LOR Report. How are you doing, Marshall?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing, Snnuy?
I'm doing great. It's been a very busy week, but I just had to make time for the podcast. Of course, we committed to the 4-week schedule, to having it out on time, that 1 week after every patch. So I'm very happy to be here and just ramble about the meta with you.
Yes, this is one of the times that I can actually say I'm really enjoying this meta. So there's a bit of a difference though. I've took the week to grind the gauntlet. I know a lot of people don't play the gauntlets because of how consuming they are and how the concept is a bit different to how they want. But I've been playing on gauntlet, testing the new decks that I want to play. I got masters just before the balance patch, so I don't have to worry about ladder anymore. I'm farming for the pins because I love the Volibear ones. So I'm playing the decks that I want to play. I don't care when I lose, and I'm not losing that often. I'm loving this meta.
Maybe that's why.
So we'll get into the decks that are doing well, and then I'll talk about what decks that I think are doing quite well at the moment. And yeah, we'll get that. We'll get to that later in the podcast.
I'm just gonna start with probably the most important question, and I'll answer it myself right after you. Is this meta better or worse than the one from before?
It's a very tricky question. I feel if you're going off decks that people enjoy playing and playing against, I honestly think that it is better. I think there is a lot more variety this patch than there was previously, because a lot of the stronger decks were nerfed, so it gave the option for other decks to come up. Even if they were decks that you saw often, you can now go, hey, I want to play this deck that was maybe a tier 2 deck that got bumped up to a tier 1 deck. Or a tier 3 deck that got bumped up to a tier 2 deck just because they were coming into the meta. A good example, which you can see right here, is the number 2 slot right now, which is the most played deck for the last 2 days, which is Jack and Set. And over the last 2 days, I'm looking at the stats on a different page here, it's a 49.56% win rate. So the most played deck of the last 2 days is a deck that isn't even winning the majority of the games. And maybe people are just having fun with this patch. Like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I've not played this deck. That kind of deck, it doesn't bring me enjoyment. However, I've seen you play this deck. I've seen other content creators play this deck. They seem to have a lot of fun playing this deck, even if they just lose out because they misplayed or something. I think that does come down to a lot of it. There's a lot of if I do this, I'm going to have this coin, and then the coin I can spend this mana. And it does come down to as long as you can do the maths, this deck is probably quite strong. I've been blown out of it quite a lot, and as you can see by Rizzoth's stat there, he's got an 86% win rate. So
I was about to say that 74 games, 86% win rate. And, Drizzt is just one of the best players, qualified for Worlds and everything. I'm going to be rooting for Drizzt. I don't know who else is going to qualify, but I really enjoy seeing Drizzt play. I enjoy seeing his take. So it's fantastic to see him have this amount of success on a deck, but I played it myself. I'm not nearly as good as Drizzt, so I do a bit of misplaying. And I could just say, for me, and I think I'm, not to be arrogant or anything, but I'm probably a little bit above the average player just because I played this game such a ridiculous amount, and I was struggling. I thought it was a hard deck. I'm not good at reading cards. I'm not good at math. Maybe that's where I go wrong, but it just feels like it's a really, really difficult deck because there's not only a lot of planning ahead for when you want to use your coins and when you're getting them. It's also very in the moment. It's like, okay, I can do this stack of coins right now, then I can generate 2 more, and just keeps going, and this unit gets this much attack, this unit gets this much attack, I need to draw into a draw spell. There's so many angles, and I gotta say, I really, really enjoy it. I am of course the resident Ionia hater, but I gotta say, Ionia beatdown, kind of based, kind of a really, really cool archetype. It's finally not Ionia where it's just I'm denying you, I'm stunning you, I'm recalling you. It's not, I'm going to combo kill you in one single turn, even though this deck can kind of do that because of the coins. It does have that aspect, but it's not really what it does every time. So what I think is funny is that we kind of have this Ionia builds for the deck that was supposed to be a thing in Rising Tides when Fizz and Lee Sin came out. Hey, here's this archetype. It's about slinging a lot of spells, maybe randomly generated spells, and we're sure that's going to be good because his Lee Sin character seems pretty good. And that never really worked. That was never the case. But now, it seems like we finally have an Ionia build sort of deck that actually makes sense and plays that beatdown style very well.
Yeah, so I just want to add here that I think this deck would not do so well if it did not have Set. I am still under the... I don't know how to say it. Like, I still think that Set is insane, and the only reason why he hasn't been touched is because Ionia was killed. After the coin changed from Burst to Focus, Ionia just basically, there was no Ionia deck. Yes, you could still play Karma Set, but it was never what it was, and no one wants to go and play a worse version of a deck. So everyone kind of just dropped Ionia. There was nothing there for people to go, oh, I want to go play that. And I still think that Set was one of the major issues with the Karma Set. And I think that if Ionia came back, he will eventually get a nerf. I'd probably say it will be to his level up condition. I just think 40, relative, especially in this deck. I think I watched your video and he leveled on like turn 6.
Yeah.
It's like, that's very fast. And like spending 12 mana in the Set decks, like it's not that difficult. Like you're getting free obliterations nearly every turn. I genuinely think if Set wasn't in this deck, it would not be as fun for players, because a lot of people enjoy that kind of like, I'm gonna start just spending stuff and getting stuff to like clear your board. But yeah, I just don't think it'd be as good. But it is a very interesting deck to see. I'm not counting the Seraphine Jack deck. I'm sorry, that's not a deck. Seraphine's in it. It's not a Jack deck. So this is the first time that Jack has seen a proper deck, and he is a part of it. There has been times where you see Jack and you're like, oh, well, I've got to deal with him because he's going to go overwhelm and beat me down. And it's a nice deck to have in the meta. It's a nice change.
I'm curious because there were multiple buffs to this deck. If I open the deck list here I'll just open the one from Drizzt. We can see 2 King's Courts, which did get buffed. Now draws Jack. Pretty big deal because Jack often is the one that will more like directly win you the game, or a Set is more of that like, I can stay in the game a little bit longer by just removing your stuff. Set can challenge something. Set can use that showstopper to remove stuff. But Jack is the one that gets like the big attack and kills you that way. Mad Ol' Babs also got buffed. Knuckle, I think this one, honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. I think it's more like, okay, now that this deck is better, Knuckle makes a lot more sense as like another kind of way to use your coins in a actual meaningful way. But the Mad Ol' Babs one is the one that really is like the biggest of deals in this deck, because you play this on turn 2. It attunes. I used to play Grumble Slug for Mad Ol' Babs. But with the attune, that means you can play the Bar Knuckles on turn 2 and just start generating the coins that way. And instead of Grumble Slug just staying at 3/4 once it has the Bar Knuckles, Mad Ol' Babs will actually get like just ginormous, especially with that Misfall. I've had turns where I just play like nothing on turn 1, nothing on turn 2, or I play Mad Ol' Babs on turn 2, then on turn 3 you play Misfall, you have 2 mana, you equip the Bar Knuckles and sees a 4/4. A 4/4 Brash that will make coins on turn 3, it's kind of nasty. It will win games, it will run away with games, and if you have to deal with the Mad Ol' Babs, maybe you can't deal with the Jack that comes down the turn later. And the deck kind of does snowball out of control while it's generating coins to the even more degenerate things. But you know what? It's still fun. It's still a really, really fun play pattern to have for a deck. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, so when I was making the graphics for the LOL report, I did like a new one that I tried out, which was like a patch highlight. And I was like, I'll include some of the buffs and some of the nerfs and be like, hey, these aren't all of them, but these are like the big ones that I will. It was the ones that I was like, okay, if I was looking at these as which ones do I think are impactful? Which ones do I include? And I put Mad Ol' Babs because I genuinely was like, this card is insane now. I was like, there's no way this card does not see play, and I'm very happy that I predicted this one right. I included it in the graphic. It is basically a 1-mana card that just, it's just exactly what that deck needs because if it doesn't have Mad Ol' Babs, that deck's not doing anything early game. You're hoping to just hold the line until then, but with Babs, you've got it. You've got that 2-mana attune, you get 1 mana back. You've got 2 mana to heavy metal if you need to, or you can tag out. Like, the deck has answers, and it's a very, very good buff.
I wasn't expecting it. I completely brushed over the Mad Ol' Babs change while I played this deck, while in like every single kind of coin-generating Jag deck. I put in Jag, Grumbleslug, and the Bar Knuckles, and I still missed it. But it is such a big deal. And I think that, like, the way the devs looked at a way to buff this deck and found this angle is a genius. It's so smart. It's exactly what this deck wants. And I love it for that. I hope this one is here to stay for a little while. But it's already kind of phasing out because the win rates aren't quite matching up. And usually you have, like, that first week of a new patch, kind of the honeymoon phase. And then eventually when people start realizing, oh, it's kind of hard to break like the 50% win rate with this deck unless I'm like, you know, a god tier player. People start moving on to different things. Like I've seen a lot of Annie Jin, for example, and yeah, that's probably just a bit more straight to the point and effective. But we'll move on here to I'm gonna be honest. I'm just gonna say before you can, I don't think this buff for Kayn really mattered that much, but you know, it feels better to play. I'll say that.
So for audio listeners and for those that don't know,
yeah.
Kayn recently got buffed. So Kayn's spell, which is a Runeterra spell, so you can only get it if you have 2 Kayns. It's called Shadow Step. It was a 4-mana slow. You give Kayn quick attack, and then he challenges a unit and strikes it. He does a free attack with it. They changed it from 4 mana to 3 mana, which I personally believe is crazy because the amount of mind get. So I play this deck in Gauntlets, I've played it in Ranked. I genuinely believe that this deck is cracked. And depending on the meta, like, you're not going to say, like, this deck is just, it's tier 0. Clearly, this deck is not tier 0. However, I do think it is tier A, like, tier 1, tier A. I do believe it's very good. I think Aatrox is still incredibly strong. The amount of times that I've played Kayn on, like, when I'm playing this deck, I will use my Forsaken Bakai, predict another Kayn, because you naturally draw a Kayn anyway. And if I'm sitting there, I'm like, listen, if I'm just going to hold up 3 mana this entire game, you're going to be terrified to tap out of mana. Because if you do, I will just win the game. Because I've seen, when I was watching you on stream play this, you really like to go blue Kayn sometimes. And I always believe that Rast is the correct answer in most games. And it's just crazy how, like, as soon as you get Rast and you start growing him up, he's unkillable. Like, I think I've gone against Lurk, because I can see Lurk just above the icon there. I've gone against Lurk 3 times with this deck, and I've won each and every time because I Kayn and Shadow Step with 3 mana and kill Rek'Sai. I kill all the Overwhelm units. I'm healing up. I love this change. It might not be game breaking as I thought it was, but I still think it is a great change to Kayn, and I'll just leave it there. I love this change.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around for a while. I don't think there is much to say, but I will agree that if this deck was playable, then now just the fact that you can play Kayn on 5 and you will, it's pretty likely that you'll have 2 Kayns because there are predicts and there is that Origin that draws them automatically, and you are always going to be playing these cultists to like activate the Origin. So having that angle where you can just hold up 3 mana to play the Shadow Step and just remove something because of the quick attack and then level Kayn on top is extremely strong. I will definitely say that. So it makes the deck strictly better just because of that. It just to me feels like if the concept of this deck doesn't already like perform, I just don't think the Shadow Step matters. It's like, it's more like if this deck sits well in the meta, then it's just a little bit better than it would be. But my issue is, and I said in the intro, is it a Janna ruled meta? But let's be honest, we can't ignore the Freljord of it all. And I don't really see this deck doing super well against most Freljord archetypes, which is why I think that, maybe it doesn't quite hold up. Because from when I played it, the win cons are obviously your champions like the Kayn and the Aatrox and the, assimilating with Aatrox most of all. But also Rain Unite Defector. Rain Unite Defector with the Harp is very often like the way you apply by far the most pressure as early as possible with this deck. Rain Unite Defector, like, it doesn't always beat a Sky Splitter. It doesn't beat Brittle Steel very often. If you're playing a tough unit against like Bandle City or a Seraphine deck, then you're very happy. They just auto win the game. Like, I've been in that scenario where I had this card against Seraphine. I had Expansive Protection for the Spell Shield to stop their Hex Obliterator or whatever, and the game was done. You simply win. It's game over. But against like Freljord, it doesn't quite do that, and that's my issue with the deck mostly. But against everything else, if Freljord was weaker, this deck will be better. And I think that's not the Shadow Step, it's more like the meta itself. from my experience.
Yeah, so I said that I got Masters just before the balance patch, and I got it with the K and Aatrox. So I knew that this deck was strong anyway. However, I was mainly using it because no one was playing around Utter Devastation when you played Warden.
Yeah.
You'd bank 3 mana going into Warden turn. They play Warden, you cleared their entire board, and you have potentially 2, maybe 3 units chilling on your board going, that was a nice Warden.
Yeah,
I've got 3 units left. Good luck.
You win the game. Yeah, like it's exactly like you said. Because with Warden, you have to build up the board before you can Warden. So you remove their board, and the Warden of it all. So it's that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. I was playing some Iaskilla, the 4/4 that doubles elemental spells with Winter's Breath, just to deal with Warden. But that's a 2-card combo. So it's a little less consistent than just Utter Devastating. For the win.
I really like Utter Devastation. It's a card that when I was trying it, I was like, you know what, we'll give it a try. And honestly, it did more than I ever could have wanted. It was perfect.
Yeah. So I just scrolled past a bunch of decks that we've seen, either in the last meta or just some old decks coming back like Deep. But here is a deck that is also old, but didn't see play until now, which I think is extremely interesting. It's probably the most straightforward Unga Bunga deck you could possibly find. And, if you just want to turn off your brain and win some games because you just play units on curve and had some combat tricks to back them up, this is the one. This is the one to go for.
So just for audio listeners, this is Nardarius. This is the Overwhelm deck that probably is most known for Rico Rex, as he was probably the one that made this. I imagine so. I just know that if there's a Battle Fury in the deck, it's probably a Rico Rex deck. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, my bad. I need to actually just announce the deck instead of being cute about it. That's I'll do better. Thank you, Marshall, for correcting me. But yes, it is the Overwhelm deck with Bone Club, with Battle Fury, just like the really, really big stats. We've seen this in the past. It's Freljord, Noxus, just play units, hit the opponent's Nexus, be aggressive, and then in the late game, you either stun a unit that's trying to block an Overwhelm unit, or you just go Battle Fury and you kill them anyway. It's extremely strong. What's interesting to me is that the Glacial Saurian is once again just finding its way into a deck with only 2 subtypes. We have Nerfs the Yordle, and the Omenhawk is the bird, and that's it. Oh, actually, Crimson Pigeon. There's 2 birds. This card is just nuts, man. Glacial Saurian is so good.
So I was talking to, I think it was Aikaido, and we were talking about the likelihood of Jack's Horn being meta, which it is. There's definitely Jack's Horns going about. And we were saying, like, Glacial Saurian, after it got its buff, because it didn't have Overwhelm originally. It was a 5/5, I think, to start with. And then it got turned to a 5/4 with Overwhelm. And everyone was like, it was seeing play as a 5/5. Like, there was no reason to, specifically in the Jack's Horn deck. But the fact it has Overwhelm now just means that, like, Thorn decks are always including it. And, like, Overwhelm decks. Oh, look, I have a Glacial Saurian. Everything's been buffed. And I'm drawing a unit, which this deck doesn't have any other draw apart from Saurian, so it gives them a reason why they want to play it. But honestly, I don't mind this deck. It's just one of those decks that you kind of just, you look at it and go, you know what you're going for. It's kind of like the elites of, like, Freljord, Demacia. Like, they have Freljord, Demacia, Freljord, Noxus. They go Overwhelm. It's pretty simple like that.
Yeah, it's just when that deck is effective in the meta, it's just kind of it exists. You know exactly what it's going to do. They don't do anything fancy. They just play big units with one specific keyword, and that's it wins games when it's not countered by X. I don't know, whatever that may be. But the thing that I would like to focus on a bit for the podcast is Janna, because the nerf that Janna received was the Exalted Cloudwinder, which is the 5-mana bird. Well, it's not a bird. The 5-mana card. That was a 3/2 with quick attack that draws 3 cards, or that draws 2 cards if you've drawn 3 cards in your current turn. It will draw 2 extra at the next turn. Went from a 3/2 to a 2/2. And this is the only thing that really hit the Janna package. And frankly, I think 1 attack point on a card you mostly play for the effect isn't quite enough. And we're seeing that in the meta too, with Neela Janna on top of the meta. We're seeing Janna and Teemo as the I discount champion strength deck with Acorn to just updraft and reduce the costs. We also have some Seraphine Janna, which surprisingly has a 49% win rate. I don't think this deck feels great, but you know, that's just me. And I mean, there's just a lot of other like niche Janna decks floating around, but those are the big three. Those are the ones where Janna really found its home. Now, I will start off by saying that I think Janna is a very successful champion design. I'm happy that it exists, but it is clearly way too strong. And the one thing that annoys me is not necessarily with the Nilah Janna deck, because you know that if they updraft, you kind of roughly know what they're going to get. But if you're playing Janna in a deck that has a big variance of cards they could possibly get, you're also adding that variety or variance of random cards being discounted that you're not expecting. And Easkilla is the biggest offender in my opinion. That card is extremely powerful, but it is a 6-mana 4/4. But if you play Janna on 4, you draw 2 cards next turn that discount by 1 because of Janna, and then you get Easkilla for 5 mana, it kind of just breaks the game. And it's extremely lucky to get that card on a Janna discount. And that's the one thing that annoys me about this. I think when it's low to the ground, it's not a big deal really, because everything is already cheap, but getting a curve like that, playing a really, really dangerous card on turn 5 instead of 6, is something that's blown me out a couple of times, and every single time I felt like, oh wow, yeah, you just happened to top deck that card, so I lose.
Yeah, I haven't really gone against Figurehead. I'm going to refer to it as Figurehead of the Deep, because I can't pronounce the first part. So Figurehead was a card in the when we got access to the beta, like day 0. I can't think of what it's called, the early access.
Yeah.
It was a card where I was playing it with Janna Volibear, and I was like, this card's very fun. And I saw it played in the first couple of days, and then it kind of just fell off.
Yeah.
I think that was just because of how fast the meta was, and you couldn't afford to do it. But I can't say anything about the card now. I understand your frustration. It is a very strong card, especially with how mid-range we've gone to the meta right now, because we've killed Samira, so there's no aggro really.
Yeah.
Wildfire got killed, so the aggro deck there got taken away. So like, yeah, you can probably afford to play the card. It is a very strong effect, but yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it a lot. I don't.
That's fair. It's just not played enough to really be upset about it.
Exactly. So it's probably one of those cards where if it did see a lot of play, it'd probably be struck on the next one. But there's a couple of cards in the Janna package that I definitely do have an issue with.
Name them out. Call them out.
Call them out. Okay, so we'll go down the list. So Sunny's pulled up I assume this is the most played version of this list.
Yes. Well, yeah. Okay.
So he's opening Ralph Terra's here, and Ralph Terra's. This is the version of the deck that I just saw Margin upload. This is one of the cards that I want to get nerfed, and you'll understand why. So the list that we're looking at, Ralph Terra has 100% win rate on this over 24 games. So this isn't like, oh yeah, no, this he got lucky. No, this deck is kind of broken. So Sunken Temple is the first card. We need to talk about this card, I think, because it's one of those things. If this deck is going to be extremely popular, it's going to be fine, because we have counters to this now. I think Sunken Temple is a perfectly fine card to have.
Mm-hmm.
I think with every region, having access to landmark removal means if this deck pops up anywhere, we have an answer. It's 3 mana to get the unit, 2 mana to kill the landmark, which is the exact same cost as Sunken Temple. You would get a unit on top, and you can destroy it. And they have no protection in their region. So Sunken Temple, did it make this deck completely broken? Yes. Is it balanced? Yes, because we can destroy it for 2 mana in every single region. The next card. Oh, by the way, I missed Janna here. I think Janna's actually fine. I actually don't mind Janna. I think Janna is extremely balanced as a card. I think it's just all of her cards that make her really too strong.
No, I agree. It's the synergy points, really.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the followers now. Miriam, I think, should be a 2/2. Just straight up. I think she's definitely just too tanky. Everyone memed about it when it got released. P&Z should not have premium stat lines. Why the hell is this a 2/2? 2/2/3. It just doesn't make sense. I make this go to 2. At least you can trade it with Samira or Akshan. The fact that you can't even play Akshan after they play this, like you can't attack with Akshan. Like,
yeah,
crazy. But I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Everyone memed it anyway. The next one is the Windborn Mariner. I think this should be a 2/1 because it can
Leap of Faith, huh?
reduce its cost. No. It's the Miriam line that you still don't understand.
Oh yeah.
You? I love that for you.
Wait, you? Yeah, no, I mean, it's a weird. Well, Mariam goes like, do the kids still dune surf back in Shurima? And then he goes, wait, you? I love that for you. And I think if somebody needs to explain it to me, and not only me and multiple people, what that actually means, that it's probably not a great voice line or interaction to have. You can go ahead. You can explain it one more time so everybody understands.
So for people that don't understand the voice line, it's implied from the way that Miriam says, do the kids still dune surf in Shurima, that she as a child dune surfed, and the windboard mariner is then surprised because he's seen this elderly lady who he wouldn't imagine would have been dune surfing in Shurima. Also, I think the fact she's also in PNZ, so there's the idea that she was like, oh, she's Shurima #1, and the fact that she used to dune surf. But that is the entire voice line. I understood it straight away, and then everyone was like, I'm so confused, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm 5 head. Yeah,
Marshall also watches Rick and Morty. He just gets those kind of.
Oh yeah. I'm big pickle man. That's me.
Okay, okay, sure.
Back to the Windborn Mariner. I think for the fact that this card can reduce its cost, I just think it should be a 2/1.
I think it should be I cost 1 less. So you have those smaller blowout turns. I think it's the blowout turn that makes it ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, either one of the change. If you want to keep it as a 2 mana 1/3, I would cost 1 less. But I think if you want to keep the text as I cost 2 less, I think it has to be a 2 attack.
Sure.
And then we move on to the next card, which was the Clown Winder. I think they nerfed this in the wrong way. I think it should have been a cost balance, like where it says I cost 2 less. I think it should cost 1 less.
Yeah.
Same way, like playing this when it's updrafted at least once. You're playing it for 2 mana at the moment, because it gets updrafted, so it loses 1, then it reduces its cost again. I just think this card it does way too much for that deck. Like I said, it's the timelines effect. It's you play this. Oh my god, I don't even want to think about this in timelines when we get to Eternal. Like it's 5 mana and you got to draw 2. Like think about the average stat line for a 5-drop. It's like what, a 5/5, a 4/5. Like it'll be crazy. But yeah, this card. So this is the version that has seen a load of play recently, and it's interesting because the 7 mana card makes this deck really good, and it's the Wizened Helmsman. Is that how it's said?
Yeah, I just call him Ellie the Elephant.
Ellie the Elephant, the 7 mana 5/5 that manifests the 2 different elemental cards, and at the moment they take advantage with this card as well as the Whirlwind Draft. There's the 5 mana deal 3, then deal 2 to the next.
Divine Whirlwind, yes. Yeah.
Divine Whirlwind, which that's another card I need to hit. There's a lot of cards I would wish I would hit in this. I feel like you have to at least hit 2 of them in the next balance patch, and if you don't, do more, do 3, do 4, hit them all the cards. But at the moment, the reason why this deck specifically is doing well is you use the Helmsman, and you pick as many of the Divine Whirlwinds as possible, and you kill your opponent by killing all of their units and also burning your Nexus health. I think this card is fine, honestly, because I don't think this card is the issue. I think a couple of other cards are the issue, and he just takes advantage of the broken cards, having more of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's also a different region, so you like kind of narrow this deck down into Piltover, Bilgewater if you do want to play it, which is the intended way, but still, it'd be weird to hit this card, I think.
Yep. The next one, Howling Gale. It deals too much damage. I feel like it shouldn't be dealing. I feel like you should do more development into it before you start getting the 5 damage. So reduce its cost by its damage by 1 and make it so they have to play another card to get the 5 effect. Personally, I don't mind it being 3 mana. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
The next one, Eye of the Storm, give something 2 attack, draw 2 for 4 mana. Burst speed, another card. This one gets abused by elusives as well, so you probably want to change it so it gives 1 attack. The idea is that you're using this, by the way, on the quick attack units. So the fact that we're giving quick attack units 2 attack is kind of crazy because quick attack with more attack is like big blowout.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, Gotcha is in this list, which I never thought I'd see this card played again, but apparently
I love Gotcha with updraft.
It's cool. I like it. I like this card being here. I always forget about it, and I always get blown out by it. You know what? It's cool. It's cool.
I love having these type of cards, and it's like, oh, I drew them too early. Let me updraft it, and then you just get like the draw effect later again. Anyway, it's really clever. I like it.
Yep. And then the last card, Divine Whirlwind, 5 mana, deal 3 to a unit, and deal 2 to the enemy nexus. But it also reduces its cost by 2 if you have drawn 3 cards this turn. So basically, you can play this after you've updrafted with Janna. And on turn 5, this is going to be 3 cost. This card is just wild. I feel like the cost reduction should be maybe to 4. It definitely shouldn't be dealing 2 to Nexus. I think it should be dealing 1 to Nexus. To be fair, I don't know why he's dealing any damage to the Nexus. I don't know why we gave PNZ more ping, but sure.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like everything in Janna's package was just tuned up. And to be fair, I don't mind it that much because it's like, it's a new expansion and like all of this. But after the balance patch, I feel like, okay, you've had a month to enjoy this. It was maybe a little bit broken. Let's nerf them down. And I definitely feel like they missed the mark on not nerfing this or not seeing that this card was going to become a problem. They probably do. They probably know it's too strong. Yeah. And they're probably like, we'll let them play the World Qualifier open. We can have new decks in the tournament and it'll be very cool. And then we'll just have to sacrifice the sanity of some of the players to experience that. But yeah, I think this is the strongest card in Janna right now. It's so strong.
I agree. Yeah, so for me personally, I think it's great that we have a deck like this because I think playing decks like this in general is super enjoyable. It's a really, really fun archetype, but it's overtuned. And I still think I would prefer this over what we had last expansion, where everything just kind of felt undertuned. It never really felt like any of the new decks were making a big enough impact, so everybody just eventually like reverted to the old decks that were good right before. So to answer that question that I asked you at the start, is this meta better than the last one? I don't think I answered it myself. But I think it's worse. I don't think it's much worse, only a little bit, because personally I really enjoy that Jack's set is now a playable deck. I like that they kind of tuned down Lurk. It's, you know, less
we
good.
We need to do a Lurk discussion. I've just realized we'll talk about this in a minute. But
yeah. Kane Aatrox is back. Orange Jax, that's one thing. Ash LeBlanc is up there. Seraphine Janna. Vayne Gwen, also kind of a, you know, a bit of an old offender with how this deck has been back again. But my main thing right now with this meta is that it feels like everything that was kind of frustrating before did get toned down, which is great. However, Freljord and Janna just felt like they were actually like the strongest thing that was around back then, and they didn't really get touched in a very meaningful way. Glacial Saurian didn't get touched, Skysplitter didn't get touched, which I don't think they should. I don't really think they should nerf them hard. Maybe Glacial Saurian needs to lose like 1 health or something. I don't know. Skysplitter shouldn't get touched. But
I don't think Skysplitter. So that's one of my hots. I don't know if it's a hot take, but I genuinely think Skysplitter is fine.
Yeah, I agree.
We had Troll Chant, and Troll Chant did more than Skysplitter.
Yeah,
like,
and Skysplitter
yes,
enables like so many Freljord stuff that wasn't really doable before. And I would rather that they balance Freljord around Skysplitter than around something like Glacial Saurian or Warden or whatever. Please keep Skysplitter.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing Ash LeBlanc. I sent you the list that I was playing today.
Banger.
You seem like you were having a fun time with it.
Biggest Pigus is back. It's good.
Biggest Pigus is back. That's a nice change as well. But yeah, I just think that Freljord has received quite a few buffs. It was definitely memed that it was the weakest region. Then
not anymore.
Then Riot was like, really? Weakest? How about we just push this button and we gotta push it again and push it again?
It's a really interesting discussion too, because I generally think that before some of the stuff that we got, Freljord was the weakest region because they didn't have any real cards that kind of entice you to go to Freljord. It's like there is no good protection. There is no like late game unit that you want to just slam into your deck. Like even you would go to Demacia, which when Demacia is weak, you still have single combat and rally. And Freljord never had a card like that. And I mean, I think Ionia's kind of in the same boat, and Targon too, maybe. But, you know, the fact that Skysplitter can just actually make this a region that you want to go to, because, hey, you get like a couple of pretty good tools from Freljord, like maybe 3 Sisters, Sigils, I don't know, plus that Skysplitter that's just always good. You suddenly just have a really, really exciting region to actually pull stuff from that you didn't have before. So I hope that they can do that for other regions too, where it's just like a simple, not necessarily frustrating card that you can just take and build a deck around. and, you know, not have a dead region for many months. But I think we should talk about Lurk. Lurk was a deck that was played in the previous expansion a lot, had a good win rate, was very frustrating for a lot of players because of their high roll potential, but the only nerf that it got is making Pike go from 4 mana to 5 mana, both unit and spell. How do you feel about that?
At first, so when I reacted to when I was like looking at this, I was like, oh wow, this is a really cool change. I like it. And then I actually sat down and was like, okay, let's let the time that I've read the patch notes go past. Let me have a proper think about this. And then I realized it literally did nothing. Like,
yeah,
as long as you understand what this deck is trying to do, like Pike, you don't really spend spell mana anyway, and you're not playing Pike. You're only casting his spell, which is the Death from Below. Summon a Pike and he strikes whatever unit you selected. So he didn't really do much. So after that, I was like, okay, this deck is probably still going to get seen. I think it's number 4 on the meta right now from where you were looking.
Yes. Yeah, number 4.
Yeah, for the
Most
53,
played.
We can see that guy there has an 85% win rate over 21 games.
Must have had a lot of attack tokens and odds, I guess. 85% of the time.
It's just a deck that I don't enjoy playing against it. The issue with this deck personally is the spam. I think the actual problem with this deck is the spam of low cost units. Mm-hmm. I think having the early predicts from Bakai into the amount of 1-drops that you can get from just in your deck, plus Rek'Sai levels, plus Call of the Pack, means that even if you were trying to like, oh, let me try and outgrow them by playing bigger units, you can't, because they'll just go, okay, well, instead of this like 7-2 1-drop, I'm now going to have 2 of them because I've used Call of the Pack and one got randomly generated.
Yeah.
I think if I was to nerf this deck in any meaningful way, Call the Pack probably would have received a nerf. I genuinely think that getting those, because you can low roll on Call of the Pack, but I think Call of the Pack was one of the cards that secretly is very good. It's like, oh, I'm going to use this, and if I get 2 1-drops from it, good. Maybe if you're P&Z, you can deal with them, but like every other region can't. And it's like, okay, they're just going to go wide, they'll beat me down, and I can't do anything. And then you obviously have the high rolls of Rek'Sai. If you get an early Rek'Sai, you kind of just win the game. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is one of the decks where, would I be surprised if it got rotated next year? Probably not. Do a lot of people still enjoy the deck? Yes, apparently so. It seems a lot of play a lot of the time. As the Lurk creator, do you have anything to say to this?
Yeah. No, I created Lurk again. It's just it's just my brain works in such a mysterious way where I'm like, what if I put all these Lurkers together and make a deck out of it? It's crazy. But yeah, it's actually interesting that Jawfish got rotated, which kind of makes the odds of getting a good unit that you can actually play a lot higher. So that also kind of plays into it. But yes, I think Rek'Sai is 100% the unit that facilitates like all these ridiculous turns and like the 1-drops, just being able to completely like outstat your 8-drop and whatever. I just don't know how you hit Rek'Sai. So maybe it's Call the Pack, make it a little less consistent in some way. But again, if you hit that early Rek'Sai, either from a Forsaken Bakai blind or of your Snapjaw Swarm, it's really frustrating. One interesting change that I've seen suggested is maybe you want to make Snapjaw Swarm 1 mana and then nerf the deck elsewhere, which I think would create other problems because getting a 1 mana free attack is potentially pretty broken. But that way you kind of reduce like that, oh, this is a deck that lives and dies by the attack token on 1 or not. And now if you have Snapjaw on, 1 mana, maybe that kind of changes something, but I still think it would create different issues, so you can't really do that.
So can you just explain where that would be a nerf? I literally only see that as a buff.
It's a big buff. It's a huge buff, of course, but I'm saying if you change that, then you can nerf the deck elsewhere, and it wouldn't feel as bad. Like, if you make Snapjaw Swarm 1 mana, maybe you can, like, I don't know, make Rek'Sai 5 mana, or make it like give 1.5 attack. I don't know, man. I'm just saying that creates opportunities to nerf the deck elsewhere because you no longer necessarily have that super high rolly, like, do I have the attack tokens or not? Because Lurk on odds has like near 60% win rate, whereas on evens it has like close to 40%. Like, that big of a swing, just depending on what turn you start, is ridiculous. That's like Hearthstone levels of variance, whether you attack on 1 or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't really enjoy this deck. I tried to get into it many months ago. Never found any enjoyment playing it because it's just that you try to high roll, and if you don't, you're sad. But yeah, we'll move on. We don't really want to talk about Lurk anymore. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, I like the characters. I like Pike and Rek'Sai, but that's really about it. So I think really fast we should just talk about some of the decks that were very prevalent getting nerfed, and the first one being Heimer Jace. I am so glad it's gone. I hate Epic Scrap Traption. The fact that every deck could just play Epic Scrap Traption after passing 2 turns and then deal 6 to me every turn if I don't have like a 3 health blocker that can't even trade into it was insane to me. And that's gone now. Hextech Handler, yeah, I mean, sure. Great. Screw that guy too.
I like the handler change a lot more than the scrap traction change because bot beatdown was probably the reason why I hated the deck.
Yeah,
there was nothing worse than them playing Heimer, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna remove Heimer. Like, I have an answer for Heimer, but it just has to be next turn. So they play Heimer on 5. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna single combat it, for example, because I played Demacia. So like, I'm gonna single combat this Heimerdinger, and I lose the game to a Vengeance on the spot, and
yeah, and they get lowest roll.
Yeah, lowest roll. They get a formula, and they still get an elusive. But like my unit survives, and it's like, okay, but then they play 3 of these, and their elusive unit is now like a 9/4. It's like, why? This isn't fun. So the fact that these are at least 1 mana units, I can at least sorry, not 1 mana, one health units. I can at least do something with that.
Yeah, I was playing it was Senna Nasus, I think, for a little bit just to see how it felt in the meta. And you play like Undying, which obviously can't block, and in some versions run Fading Icon, you run Spirit Leech. Everything has like 1 health because you're playing Shadow Isle. I'm forced to use my freaking Vengeance on Epic Scrap Traption. It's insane. Like, what the hell? Yeah, sure, you're trading 6 mana for 6 mana, but not really, because that actually powers up their deck in a very meaningful way. And if you don't do it, you lose. So I was
playing Zombie Ash into Heimer Jace, and I'm like, okay, I like the late game. I can pass as many times as I want. They were just playing Regis, and I was like, oh no, this is not going to end good for me. And I'm just like, something's going to go here where I'm forced to use an answer, and I'm still going to lose the game because of it. And it did. It was just one of those, they could happily sit there and pass all game. And the moment that you do anything, they win the game, basically. It's as long as you do the move first, they win. Which, that's not a fun deck to play against, in my opinion.
No, it's also, it was been around for so long. It's always the same thing. Pass turn 1, pass turn 2, play a 6-cost spell on 3, play Hextech Handler. I've seen it a million times at this point. I'm sick and tired of it. So let's move on. There's another one. Okay, Samira. That's one we should go over to.
Yeah, I definitely think that. So I said this before we started talking. I think personally, Samira did need a nerf. I was one that was saying that they should have just broke the flavor and made it more difficult for her to level up. And they really did make it difficult for her to level up. And not in the way that not in the way I thought. There's 2 main things. Flare is now 2 cost, and every single time you strike, it will reduce the cost by 1 for level 1 and by 2 on level 2. So her level 1 it's not that good anymore. I mean, and then her level 2 is like gutted. Like one of the things I was kind of worried about was like Achan Samira back in Eternal meta.
Yeah,
don't worry about that because it's just Achan. Maybe he can use the Resolver. Maybe he can bring back the old version. He can revive the old better version of Samira, but they kind of just killed her. Am I really that upset? Honestly, no. I never really played Samira. The only reason I was excited for Samira, really, the start of her launch was when she could give Challenger to allies, and I was like, I'm going to build a Samira Ash list, and it's going to have some of the plunder cards from both of the regions, and I can give my Ash Challenger every turn for 1 mana. It's going to be great. And then they took that away from me, and then I did not care for this champion 1 bit after.
Yeah, I actually think it would have been really interesting if they gave that ability back on this nerf, because Samira's just dead. There's almost no reason to play her, like, at all. So I think it would have been cool to give that part back, so at least he would see play in some of the more niche decks, like with Pantheon, with Varus maybe.
Yeah, I was looking at the stats when I was doing the weekly LOR report. Hey, look at what the top 3 decks are. I was curious. I was like, let me go and check what Samira was doing. I was like, maybe she's not even seeing any play. She was like 46% with like Samira. Not Samira, with Seraphine. I was just like, I was like, they just killed her. I was like, there's no need to talk about this champion anymore.
Yeah, we can look again in like a couple of months maybe. Like, her dominance has been just so prevalent for many months now. 6 months. since he came out, pretty much. So I think it's fine to tone her down now, to get her out of the meta for a little bit, give her some time to, I don't know, sharpen her sword or whatever, and then in a few months we'll see if we can bring her back. Okay, Pike, we went over that. Cloudwiner, we went over. Warden is interesting. It's still there, though. So...
I don't know if you remember, I made an Elites deck that had Warden in.
Oh, yeah.
And this was when Warden was at 9, and I was like, Warden's very good at 9. Then Warden came to 8, and I'm like, what are you cooking? I'm like, why are we giving this 8 mana? And surprise, surprise, I wasn't that far off line. I was playing an Elite version, which was Demacia Freljord, and it turns out Demacia Freljord was what you were supposed to be playing, but I mean... I was just memeing playing it with Garen and J4.
Ah, you had the concept. Yeah.
The concept was there. My deck building is not that far from what's popular. So, but yeah, no, this was crazy. I'm not surprised. To be fair, I was a little bit surprised that they just reverted it. I was potentially thought they were going to do the Winding Light change, where they make it so it doesn't impact the unit itself. But I mean, at the end of the day, I still think this will see play in a Warden deck. You'll still lose game to it. It's just one turn later, and... I'm not gonna lie, the decks that it was doing in, you can stall for that one turn. They had harsh winds, they had cataclysms, they had single combats.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think it's just a reasonable nerf again.
I agree. It's fine if they don't want this to be dead. It's just worse than before. That's fine. You know, the card doesn't need to be outright removed like they did with Samira. So that's all right. Also, Wildfire, I don't think there's much to say about this at all. It's just like, that was a very frustrating deck to play against. Even if it wasn't the best in the game, people hated it. And I'm glad they increased that by 1 mana. Watchful Idol, though, I think is interesting simply for the fact that I feel like a Swain Revert could have maybe came in the same patch, because Swain, it's one of the most iconic champions in all of Runeterra, simply because of that desk slam for the level up. Yeah, it's iconic as hell. Everybody knows it. So Watchful Idol went from a 0-5 to a 0-4, and it deals 2 to itself every single turn. That means you get 1 less proc. Now, the issue with this card was how fast it leveled Swain. If you had 2 Watchful Idols, that was a leveled Swain, because it would deal 2 damage to itself 3 times. That's 6 times 2. That's 12. Swain's leveled up. Now it would only deal 2, so that's 8 instead of 12. That's large. This nerf alone basically makes up for the entire Swain nerf, where if he was like he was before, it'd be the exact same speed because of this card. Now, I don't like Illaoi at all. I hate Illaoi. I strongly dislike Illaoi decks and how linear they are. So I'm happy to see this, but you know, Swain deserved better.
Yeah, so there was a change that I suggested, and then someone one-upped me and added a bit of text to my change, which was to make this a 1-mana 0-3. And then it would deal 1 to itself and spawn 1, so it only deals 3 damage. And I'm like, it's a really good change. And then someone was like, but what if you put Tough on that? And I was like, yeah, that would be kind of broken.
Oh,
and then
you're right.
And then someone said, what if we made it so it would only spawn 1 if it dealt the damage to itself, and spawn, and with Tough, it wouldn't deal damage. So you could potentially softlock yourself if you put Tough on it. And I was like, wait, that's a really good change. And I still think that would be a fair change, and you would nerf Illaoi somewhere else. But I do agree that Swain was definitely the man that got... he got left behind a little bit. He's dead on the water. Because this was the only card... If you didn't draw this on 1, your Swain was bad. If you drew this on 1, Swain was good. Yeah. Now we've killed this card, so that means Swain is never going to be good.
Exactly, so, yeah. This is literally like, this reminds me of League of Legends, where an item is overperforming, and then like one champion is good because of it finally. Like, let's say Darius is always unplayable, and then an item is suddenly good. And then they first nerf Darius, and then the item. It's like, okay, my champion was already bad. It was good because of the item. Now they nerf my champion, and the item, my champion is worse than it was before this. That's Swain. Poor Swain, man.
I just want to talk quickly about the elusive one. They did this change very quickly to move it away from elusives and to put it into the flash bomb. It literally changed nothing. They still play it in elusive. I think that is the only thing to say. They tried something here, it failed, we move on.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I like that it's a bit better in flash bomb, but the Omen Hawk, if anything, is more meaningful for countering elusive because everybody's playing Omen Hawk, so...
Yep, and Omen Hawk actually countered the old version even better, so... What are we doing, Riot? Come on. Revert this back, and then Omen Hawk can be even better.
That's actually a really good point, yeah. Okay, Valley of Imitation. So, the Nidalee deck was a bit strong. The Big Game Tycoon interaction and the Nakotak interaction. But I liked Valley of Imitation as a card a lot. So I'm kind of sad to see it go, but it was definitely necessary.
Yeah, I feel like it's really funny because you saw like when Bard was released and everyone was like, "Oh my god, I have 2 million chimes," and it's like after a while, like what's the difference between like a 30-30 and a 2,000-2,000?
Yeah, there isn't any.
There's no change, and it was like, oh yeah, they're just meme decks. You'll never see a deck that does like really big numbers and win. And then you're like, this came out, and you were like, oh. Why is this card casually like a 20-30, and then the next one next to it would be like a 40, like 48, and it just keeps going along. You're like, oh no.
And then they play one overwhelm and it's over.
Yeah.
It was cool though. I liked it.
My favorite version of this was playing this with Balin, which God rest his soul. It was very fun to play this on 3, Balin on 4. Then you have 2 Balins that both buff each other. It was a fun combo. I liked it. But I definitely do think this card was maybe a little bit too strong, and I think this was a reasonable nerf.
Yeah, I agree. It was also with the Beguiling Cobra, which also got fixed. Beguiling Cobra used to summon like an entire board of itself if you had Valley of Imitation, because of the way the summon effects worked, where it copies itself. That also no longer works. So, I think they're hitting the right stuff going into the Eternal Season. Innovative Blacksmith, I don't think there's much to say about this. This is just like, you don't really play this for that one attack. You do it to get a weapon. It's in Freljord. They care about the tag. They care about the weapons with Jax. So, I don't know, but it's fine.
I've seen a lot of people change their choice to Castaway now. So they basically get 1 mana instead of the healing. I mean, it's fine. It just basically puts them at even level. If you need more healing in the meta, you go for this. If you want more spell mana, answers to other stuff, you run that. I think it's now just instead of it being a good card, it is just a mediocre card. You choose whichever one's best for the scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to look at some of the winners of the buffs, like a couple of them. Omen Hawk is obviously one of them. I think this is like this text, by the way, I can block units with elusive. I think it's almost filler text. It almost doesn't do anything. And if you put this text on a card that was previously unplayable, it will stay unplayable. So people are asking me, like, why did they put this on an already good card? It's like, because that's the only way people are actually going to use this effect. Badger Bear is the same thing. It's a 3-mana 4/4. They're playing it because it's a 3-mana 4/4 elite, not because it can block a loser. That's like a nice little bonus. And sometimes, you kind of lock out your opponent because of it. Same with Omen Hawk.
So Aaron Riot Runeclaw, when they did the interview, well, not the interview, when they did the live stream revealing their things, they were talking about how Freljord mid-range doesn't really have any answers to elusives. So they were like, if you got to specifically buff that deck, you have to buff a card that was going to be in that deck. Yeah. So they were like, hey, we're going to have to give this to Open Hawk, which I like it. It's a fitting change. I also think that this, I don't know why I was thinking about this. That line of text, I can block units with elusive. I realized that you really cannot give that to anything high cost because it doesn't do anything. Elusives are go wide early and then beat you down. Yeah. So you have to do it. Like Badger Bear is probably the latest that you can do it, and Omen Hawk is the earliest. So I think it's one of those 1-3 mana. You can put it on a unit there that does see play. We're not going to put it on a bad unit.
Now that I think about it, now you say this, you know what card they should have put this on? Starlet's here. That would have been, I think that would have been cool. I think that would have been epic.
That'd be cool. Well, I've always said that I wanted this text on the elite, the 2-mana 1/4 elite.
Oh yeah.
The Vanguard Lookout, and then I was like, Lookout. The idea that all Lookout cards. So I searched Lookout, and there is the new Lookout card from Bilgewater, the monkey. And there's Buru Lookout, and the Dragon Guard Lookout, which is the rally card. And I was like, you know what? I think that any card that has Lookout in the name should have I can block elusive. And that's my decision. If we're going to make a really weird buff, every single Lookout card can now have elusive.
So just make it a keyword called Lookout.
Make it, yeah.
Look out for elusives. King's Court, we went over in the Jack deck.
Can we just talk about Wrath? This was the card that... So this was the deck that I sent to you. I played 15 games of Ash LeBlanc, and I won 14 of them. I added 2 versions of this card in the deck. This card is really good in a Frostbite-focused deck. You saw it today. You like, hey, it's a small buff, it doesn't do that much. And then when you play the games, you're like, wait, there's a lot of units that just have 2 or 3 attack that just can't do anything anymore. It's
so interesting because very often in the meta right now, your opponent will have like 1 or 2 big units and then a bunch of like Omen Hawks and stuff, and just smaller stuff. So you hit Wrath of the Freljord on their biggest blocker, and then if they play another one, you're like, okay, well, I have Ash. So you can always remove 2 blockers, and even if Ash isn't leveled, you have Wrath of the Freljord to just instantly push you over the top. It's such an interesting change, and I really like the way he plays an Ash. It's really good, yeah.
Also, I love that this works like the 2-mana card. It goes through Spell Shield. Chef kiss.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got the play effect. Yeah, it's the 3/1.
Yep, we talked about Mad Old Babs. Oh, by the way, that Diva nerf. I'm calling it a nerf. There's no way that this was not a nerf to Clash of Titans. I'm telling you, they were like, we need to nerf. Yeah, I was like, we need to nerf Clash of Titans. So they added more bad cards. Zone Diva is mine. Why am I playing Clash of Titans for an 8/5? No keywords. nothing.
Just an 8/5. Even less chance of hitting Adakan or Big Citria.
Exactly.
So the Ari change, I think so from 6 to 5 is a really big change. You hit it like super early, super consistently. You don't really have to do anything for it. You just play the deck the normal way. I think this is too much. However, the deck isn't strong enough for it to matter.
Yeah, so I've not really run into this deck much. However, I have seen many YouTubers making content from this because they're like, oh, let's make a video of like an Ari deck that's never seen play before. Yeah. I mean, I watched Aikaido play this, and he was having a very fun time playing this deck.
Yeah.
Funny one that I saw was the fact that most people are playing this with Freljord so they can get Clash of Titans, because Kennen's spell that he generates is an elemental, so Clash can be reduced. It also helps you with protection with Sky Splitter for Ari and Kennen.
Yeah.
You can then also get Omen Hawk on 1, which can potentially buff your Ari or your Kennen. And then you can recall it and you can buff it again. And you know what? I mean, I really like the concept of Ari Kennen. Recall's never really been a deck that's seen much play.
When it was released, it was very good. But yeah, never beyond that.
I mean, yeah, that's when they had the broken spells like Homecoming, which is...
Yeah.
That's a different topic. But,
the Allegiance card, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember when they had to nerf that. And they were like, yeah, we can't have that be the same unit anymore because you would double summoning cannons.
Yeah. It was too much. It was way too much.
But, like, I don't mind this coming back. There's probably going to be... They'll release another recall thing. This deck will become broken again. We'll have to hit it again. It's just the cycle of this deck. But, you know, for the time being, that'd be fun. I'll enjoy. I don't mind.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm just sad because I think the play pattern of, like, recalling Droplet to draw, recalling Ken for a spell, recalling Omen Hawk to buff your deck is pretty fun, honestly. It's kind of cool. However... Then you realize that Ari will always be tied to elusives, and it's a bit of a shame, really. But yeah, aside from that, play patterns can be fun. We got Adakan here, which now has play revive the strongest dead ally, which is a really cool change. I haven't actually experimented with this yet, but I'm pretty excited to do so. Yeah, cool change with the sigils.
It's just one of those things where if you play it, you're less likely to be like, okay, I've just spent 10 mana to do nothing. This idea gave me the idea to do a Twitter post of cards that I would like similar effects to, like 10 mana Cythria, summon a random elite when you play it, so that it doesn't feel as bad if you have no board, for example.
But
like do the thing where you have to play the card, not summon it, so it can't get taken advantage from other cards. I think it's same with the pig. The pig got given a play effect. I actually think they should do more of these changes to bigger cards. It would be very nice.
It's a thing with big units. You need to give them like immediate impact to the board or some effect to help you stabilize or, you know, control, remove something. They did the same thing with, God, this is so long ago, the Shurima card, the Conservator or something, where it's the one where if you slay 14 units this game, it doubles itself and kills everything. Now it's the play effect that you can just vengeance, like kill one unit or kill one follower, I think.
I think I think it's a follow-up, but like that was along the right lines of people saw it. It was a cool change. I mean, that card was bad, so it was like, hey, we're going to give this to a bad card. But if you put it on a good card or a card that's borderline and good, you could see play it. And Atakan was seeing play before with the Volibear deck, with Headmistress Telsey. And I think the fact that it's a play effect, very good, because it means that you can't cheat it out. Apart from just like discounting its cost.
Yeah, if it was a summon effect, it would be extremely broken. You could somehow soul cleave your Adakan, and you would just fill your entire board with Adakans. It's like Beguiling Cobra, basically. So I get that. We got some filler stuff here. There's really...
I think the exhaust change, by the way. I think the exhaust change was a small change, but I think it does quite a lot for Shurima. I just don't think there's a lot of Shurima decks right now. But I do believe that this is a very decent card now in the deck. Like you're not too ashamed running one or two of these.
Yeah, I think there could be like a potential for like a tier 2, tier 3 Ash Shurima deck maybe even. Works quite well there. Shadow Step, we talked about. Eclectic Collection went from 7 to 6. The one where you shuffle puff caps, flash bombs, portals, and chimes, depending on how many allies you have. I think this is a very big change, but hasn't seen a deck that it really can find a home in.
Every single time I've gone against this recently, I've lost. I still don't like portals. I still think they come out way too fast.
Yeah.
I'm trying to clear a board and like, hey, I'm just gonna play something that gives a portal, and I'm gonna play another unit when it dies, it gives a portal, and I'm gonna play Nora and Strike and get a portal. It's like, I just want to get through your board. Stop summoning stuff for free. Like, yes, they can low roll sometimes, but like, I just want portals maybe to, instead of top 4, go to top 5, or just change the portals a little bit. But yeah, overall, I think it was a very good change. It'll find a deck eventually, and we'll probably go back to 7, but we'll see.
Yeah. Once it finds a deck, I would not be surprised to see this adjusted very soon, because it adds multiple different levels of RNG, and generally people don't really like playing against that when it's good. But to wrap it all up, I think we should go over the bugs, unless there's something you still want to mention here.
Not really. I'm just looking at all the balance changes, and we've covered all that. The bugs, really. I've did a post on the LOR report to let people know. The event path. There was the Victorious quest, which is supposed to be the daily quest where you get 6 tokens if you win 3 games. And the way it works was people were having it complete and not give the tokens, and then it would just like sit at 100%, or there'd be the people that would have it complete, it would disappear, and then would never come back the same day. Loads and loads of people complained about this. There's a Path of Champions YouTuber that I watch. He complained about it because he was like, look, I paid for this pass and you're not giving me what I want. And I was like, you know what? You're fair to complain.
Yeah.
Like, you're paying for a product and you're not getting what was promised.
Yeah.
And then Riot came out, they did a Reddit thread. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try and promote this as much as I can. I've got a post going out tomorrow to remind people. For people that don't know, I will go through it again. If you contact Riot on support, there's a thread, there's a Reddit post that is pinned to the top of the r/Legends of Runeterra subreddit. You go on there and it will show you the instructions of how to submit the ticket. You basically tell Riot how long the bug has been affecting you. Most people it has been the entire patch. So it'll be, a month now? Just over a month they've been experiencing it. They will they'll credit your account 6 tokens for each day that you did not get the quest. So you're roughly working about 200 tokens for the event pass, which is fair. You're just getting what you should have done. Some people are saying they should give more. They probably should. They maybe should up it to 8, just so they can like kind of guarantee. But like, yeah, I'm glad that Riot finally came out and like, hey, we have the green light to like give you all of these points back. It does kind of hurt some people, because especially the YouTuber that I was watching, he was very, very salty about it. He was saying that
fair.
he wasn't going to tell people to buy the event pass anymore, which I think was a little bit extreme. Because I was like, clearly Riot haven't done this on purpose. Yes, they were very silent about it and they didn't really say anything. But it's not something that would have probably just went under the rug. But that's really the only major... I was going to say really the only major bug. I've had 2 bugs recently. The Kayn, the Kayn bug, which is if you have Kayn on the board and assimilate with Aatrox, he should transform into Rast on the board. But what happens is that he flips, and then he goes to Rast, then recalls because he's leveled. But then because you have Rast in hand, if you have another Kayn in hand, one is classed as Rast and one is classed as Kayn. So you can play the Rast, and then the Kayn can come out, and you can play Kayn as another Rast. It's really funny to watch. I wouldn't say it really impacts the game that much, because Rast is good, but only one of them can have the weapon. But yeah, it was one of the bugs that I found day one. You can see it here, so...
Can't really make it bigger, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I leveled the Aatrox, my Kayn levels, and then when he turns into Rast, goes back to hand, and then you can probably see my reaction. I'm looking at my hand, I'm like, huh? There's a Rast? there's also a Kayn.
Yeah.
It was just a funny bug. I found it day one. We also have a Shytrox at the moment, Aatrox's art was adjusted slightly, and he like hides behind the card frame.
Yeah.
So you can see there now we got two Rasts on the board, which is funny.
So what Assimilate used to do, and I think what is intended, is that if you use it while a follower has the Rast or the Cane weapon equipped, it will always just transform into Rast and stay on the board. But right now it recalls itself. So Rast goes back to hand, but you both get Rast as the 0-mana unit, and you get Cane that transforms itself as a 0-mana unit. So they're also both playable instead of turning into a champion spell. Like Shitrox, Aatrox, art is off-center, so you only see like half his face, so it kind of looks like he's very shy and doesn't want to show up. It's pretty hilarious. 2 bugs with 1 deck.
Yeah, I can't think of any other bugs that have been up this patch, which is interesting because we had a very bug-heavy last patch.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that there's none because as we're loading it up, we have the World Qualifier Open
on the
next
28th
weekend. Yes, on the 28th of October. This will be the last World Qualifier Open before Worlds. We do have a last chance qualifier, but it's not the same. This World Qualifier Open, you're going to get up to $5,000 if you're first. You will get 18 Runeterra points, but it doesn't matter because you automatically get qualified for Worlds. So there's going to be 64 players, and the winners of the World Qualifier Opens from the 3 regions for the 3 seasons will be automatically qualified. I just think this Open is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's do or die.
I still think the meta is still adapting a little bit. It's not as much as it was over the weekend because there were still a lot of decks that are trying to be found.
Yeah.
But I do think we'll see some Janna decks again. Janna Neela, I definitely think is a deck that we're going to see quite a lot of, like we've talked about. 100% win rate on some players. It's I think it's going to be interesting, especially with it being the World Qualifier Open. A lot of people will probably be tryharding this tournament, which means that it should be very good. If you enjoy competitive, which I do, I think it's going to be a very good watch.
It's going to be just fantastic in the next in the next 2 months with this and the actual Worlds. It's absolutely just banger content, guaranteed.
Yep, and then after the World Qualifier Open, we have the 4.11 patch, which is the variety set, and the last variety set was an absolute banger. Literally, I think it was probably one of the best patches they've done. The cards were amazing. The balance changes some of them were just timeline changes, which is just you give a unit an attack and a health, and the unit never sees play. But if you get it by timelines, it doesn't feel that bad. And then after that balance patch, not that weekend, the weekend after, which is 1 week than we usually have it, we get the Eternal Runeterra Open, and then the weekend after that is the last chance qualifier, which is standard format. We got that confirmed with the patch notes. It's that they're going to be 2 weeks where people are like, okay, I really need to get qualified with points, or I need to win the last chance qualifier to qualify for Worlds. For example, think Aikaido. Let me just pull up the actual. They've not released the points, but we have a rough guess of who's qualified. So I know big names. Byattack, he's not qualified yet. He will be definitely trying in this Open. We have Aikaido. Aikaido is still very much looking to qualify. Taigai, ABG Taigai. Sorry from EU. Broken Ball, Pavalici, Boki, Salty Simon, all names that you see. Sonic, Sokoi. There's quite a lot of names that you see here. You're like, these are really good players. They've not qualified, and there's not much time left. So you're probably gonna see them going, hey, I'm only gonna play the good decks. If they do content on YouTube, you'll probably just see the same meta decks from them or on stream because they really need the points. They can't. It's not even the fact of like, I need to win this. They need to make sure that they get the most points possible so that they can't be overtaken by someone else.
Yeah.
They will probably go, if I'm out early, I'm rooting for the underdog that has no points because that means that they can knock out my opponent who might be able to get more points than me. It's going to be wild, especially towards the end. Like, when I saw the Runeterra points and how they were doing it for Worlds, I was like, is it really impactful? Like, the 2 ladder points from, like, ladder that you can get? Very much so. There's some people that are like, so, like, for example, for Americas, first place is 33 points, second place is 33 points, third place is 32 points, the next person is 29, and like you can get 4 points. Like, it's like literally the difference of like winning, going up in a bracket in the World Qualifier Open. So people will be sweating. Like, for example, I just realized Margin Bay, he's not even qualified. He will be trying his heart out to try and get qualified.
Yeah, and people love seeing a content creator struggle, so that's definitely this is a moment to keep your eye out for. I love watching competitive. I don't really keep track of the points. I just like seeing good Runeterra, seeing people that are actually good at the game battle it out. So it's gonna be a great 2 months if you enjoy that type of content as well. But for us, I think that about wraps it up. We have the next patch coming out on Wednesday, November 8th. So that means that 1 week later, on November 15th, we are going to be back with a new episode of the Runeterra Podcast. It's going to be a bit more of an exciting one because there will be actual new cards, so there's a little more to talk about. This is the balance update, so the fact that it's near the end of the year makes it a bit more exciting, but...
I just realized as well, so it's going to be very interesting when we get to the Eternal, because it's a topic that we could have mentioned. We'll maybe talk about it in the next podcast. We got the announcement of the Runeterra universe is being retconned, and everything from now is going to be in a unified canon. I would imagine that new cards for Legends of Runeterra could potentially be in that new canon, which is good because a lot of people like this game for the lore. You do all of your lore shorts. It should be very interesting, especially with the next expansion. Are they just going to straight up say, look, everything that happens here is canon, every single character, if its reference is now canon? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah,
it's a pretty exciting time. It's a bit messy, but I like that they're taking this initiative because it's much easier to engage players that way when they actually feel like getting invested into a game or story or like a couple of cards that tell a cohesive story is much better than just releasing short stories that not everybody likes to read. So I'm happy that they're doing this now. It's going to be a bit messy, but a lot of exciting things to look forward to. So
definitely.
That does it. Next time we'll be back with 10 new cards to talk about. 4 weeks later, we have the finale of the year, always the most exciting expansion with Worlds around the corner. So the next 2 episodes are going to be certified bangers if this one wasn't already. So we'll see you guys there.